Oh, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Samfiru Tumarkin live employment law show on Facebook and YouTube. I do apologize. I'm a few minutes late. My computer decided to restart last minute and do some updates, but I'm here now. I'll be here for the next half an hour or so. Happy New Year to everybody. And I know we didn't have this over the break, but my colleague Dan and I are back. We're located, or Dan and I are located in Vancouver. We deal with employment law issues on a daily basis. That's our job. We do have colleagues in Ontario and Alberta as well, and we do have live shows that they do on a bi-weekly basis, I believe. So feel free, and I do see we have some questions here. For anybody that's new to this show, I'll essentially try to answer any and all questions related to employment law for the next half an hour. If you type it in your chat box in front of you, I'll be able to read it and try to answer it to the best I can. Obviously, I'm a lot of situations are a bit more nuanced, but I'll try to answer in general and maybe try to be more as specific as I can. So please type your questions in the box and I'll be able to see them and answer them as they come up. So I see we've got a question from Paul. Paul asks, supposed to retire, collecting pension October 1st, 2022. You were terminated March 5th, 2019. Could you sue the employer for your lost pension for the period between my termination and the pension start date? Yeah, so Paul, that's a really good question. So the first thing to keep in mind is I don't know what's happened since you were let go. You only have, so I don't know if there's been a lawsuit or if you've signed a release. So there's two barriers to your case, Paul. The general answer to your question is yes, you can sue for loss of pension if the employer didn't give you enough notice when you were let go, assuming you're non-unionized. The issue I see with your case is you only have 2 years from when you were first let go to actually claim for that loss in a legal action. So you were let go in 2019. 2 years from March 5th is March 5th, 2021. If you're in BC, there might be a special exception for you where you can still claim against the employer. So I would talk to a lawyer as soon as you can about your situation. Other provinces are different. The other issue is if you sign a release or any agreement when they let you go, that release might prevent you from suing. So those are the two main concerns I have about your case, Paul. If you already have an agreement, you obviously can't, an agreement to not sue the employer. It's hard to get over that agreement and be able to still claim for that lost pension. But in normal circumstances, yes, the law is if you are let go, and let's say a judge finds that you were supposed to get 12 months notice, right? And the company only gave you whatever 2 weeks. You can sue for the lost pension over that year, over that 12 months. Obviously, the value of that pension depends, on your what type of pension you have. So if you have a defined contribution, the value of that lost pension is going to be different than if you have a defined benefit. And so I won't get into that, but those are kind of the issues you're looking for. In your case, Paul, my best advice to you is go talk to lawyers as soon as you can. See if they can still do anything about your situation. Because like I said, it's been more than 2 years now. So it could be the case that you might be out of time. I don't know. In some provinces, you might still be okay. So move on to the next question. And for everybody out there, if you ask a question, feel free to follow up on it. If I've said anything you need more on, I'll try to get to it. So Paul, I hope I was able to help you out a little bit there. All right, so we've got a question from Lanny. My doctors are scared to give me an exemptions. I already have a brain aneurysm and pericardial fluid and blood clots, and the vax provokes all of these in healthy people. How can I escape the vaccine for work? Yeah, Lenny, that's that's an issue I've unfortunately have had to deal with quite a few of my clients. Um, I know that there are very limited exemptions right now for uh, for doctors to write. I think last I looked, there were, I don't know, 3 exemptions, maybe 5 exemptions that were given by the college. The issue with your case is if you're not on that list of exemptions, your doctor might say to you, maybe it's not the best idea to get the vaccine right now, given your medical condition. But obviously, the college, the doctor's regulator, is preventing. They might get. The doctor might get in trouble if they provide an exemption for something that's not on the pre-approved list. So my only suggestion to you is if you're not in a union, try to work with your employer. I don't think you can escape the vaccine. I think you can tell your employer, hey, my doctors told me that I, recommended for me not to get the vaccine. At this time, I can't provide an exemption, but maybe at some point in the future, I can. And it's a tricky issue because technically the employer, they have to go by what a doctor. The issue is your doctor probably won't put that in writing. And if you don't get a doctor's note to your employer, they'll come back to you and say, well, we can't do anything with your exemption because you haven't given us the in writing. So there might not. My best advice right now is say, hey, like my doctor said this to me, but I can't get you a note because they're restricted by the exemptions. That might not protect you. Your employer might still let you go based on their vaccination policy, but it's kind of out of the control of your doctor because, like I said, the list of exemptions right now is very limited. Mark asks, how easy is it to have an employer change their ROE? I was let go. My employer put for cause on my record, but that is inaccurate. Yeah, Mark, I've certainly had success getting companies to change the ROE. If you're concerned about the EI benefits, because if they put just cause on your ROE, Service Canada is going to have questions, right? And when you go to Service Canada, you just have to explain the situations to them. I don't know the specifics of your case, Mark, but I'll let you know that quite a few of my clients have been dismissed for alleged cause. And Service Canada has found the opposite, right? Once they've interviewed you, once they've talked to the employer, they'll say this is not cause. We're still going to get you your EI benefits. In terms of changing it to other or for other purposes, the companies sometimes will agree to change it as part of a settlement. I'm not saying that they'll agree in your case, but that's something that you can ask your employer for. And I guess the leverage you have is that, if you don't believe you've been let go for cause, you can sue them, right, for what's called wrongful dismissal. So, Mark, maybe if you let me know why you want them to change it, maybe I can give you a bit more general advice as to what to do. But usually what I find is it's for, EI benefits or just to clear your record. Okay, so JJ Pearson asked, as a Union City employee in BC and being placed on leave without pay, can you just request severance as part of the grievance process? So JJ, that's a good question. It depends on the terms of your collective agreement. Usually the collective agreement will provide for some sort of severance provision if you're let go. The fact that you're in a grievance process, I would assume that there could be settlement talks between your union rep and the employer as to, some sort of monetary compensation as opposed to getting reinstated. I don't want to get too much into it, JJ, just because every collective agreement is so different. I don't know where you are in the process or what you're trying to go for. But I imagine that I've certainly heard of union cases where you're just paid out, right? You're just paid out by the employer as part of a settlement, and you don't get to go back to work, and you just move on with your life. Okay, we got a question from Amy. If an employee is on an existing WCB claim, approved for permanent disability WCB benefits. Do all WCB claim entitlements remain in place if the federal government mandates vaccines for employees in the workforce? So if, for example, the employee is currently on a medical leave of absence but may return to work following vocational rehab in the future. Yeah, I mean, I don't deal with WorkSafe claims very much. I don't know the answer to your question. I'm sorry. I don't deal with the WorkSafe Act that much. It's a very specific and nuanced area of law. I know there's a lot of complex legislation. I'm not sure why a federal mandate for vaccines would affect someone's WorkSafe claim entitlements. If they're going to come back from a medical leave of absence, if they're on WorkSafe right now and they're going to come back and the employer has a mandatory vaccination policy, as long as, if the government is saying that the employee has to be vaccinated to work, I don't see why the WorkSafe claim would affect that. Spark says, hi, Sandy, I was just terminated yesterday for non-compliance, revaccination policy. I worked for the city of Toronto for 7.5 years. Non-union, working from home since March 2020. Yeah, Sparks, I don't know if you've watched a lot of my previous Facebook Lives or my colleagues. I know you're in Ontario. I think the general, until we get more guidance from the court, so a judge deciding on this case, I think the general advice is if you're not covered, if your employer voluntarily put in a vaccination policy, right, meaning the government didn't tell your company or your employer to do that, it's unlikely that they'll be able to force this vaccination policy on you, right? And if they do, if they let you go, they should pay you severance. That's the general advice that I think, a lot of lawyers are putting out there right now. We don't have any guidance from, judges yet. We will later this year, I hope. So if you're in Ontario, Sparks, I don't know if your specific industry and job is mandated by the government to have to be vaccinated to work. I doubt it. But please reach out to our firm, to someone. We have a lot of lawyers in Toronto that can help you. I doubt it because I know Mr. Ford he had decided not to mandate it even for hospital workers. So I think you might be in the clear, but I would book a consultation with one of our Toronto lawyers and just talk to them. I suspect you should be entitled to severance if they let you go because you didn't want to get the vaccine. So Lanny, follow up on the question. Lanny, you said your doctor will not put it in writing. Yeah. So I've dealt with your situation, unfortunately, quite a few times, Lanny. The doctor won't put it in writing, but they'll verbally say that maybe it's not the best idea right now. I can't tell you what to do, Lenny, in that situation. I mean, if you want to keep your job, you certainly just can choose to get the vaccination. If you choose not to get it, like I said before, the biggest issue is you don't have that doctor's note in writing. And in the future, if you want to fight a human rights case, this is going to be a hotly, it's going to be a hotly contested issue as to if a doctor can't give you something in writing because the college told them they can't, do you still have a basis for a human rights complaint? And Lenny, I don't know the answer to that. It's a tricky situation. I would say that if your doctor's telling you not to do it, you've got to weigh that against losing your job, right? Losing your job and not being able to get reinstated to it. Sparks, you're adding that City of Toronto, no plans for City to come back to the office. Suspended without pay since November 2nd. Yeah, Sparks, I would reach out to one of our Toronto lawyers. I'll say that they can't unilaterally place you on an unpaid suspension without your permission, right? Without your consent. That, if you want it to be, could be a termination of your employment. And I say if you want it to be because you can make that election, right? If they put you on an unpaid leave without your permission, that could be something called a constructive dismissal. In your case, it sounds like a constructive dismissal to me. And in that case, you could claim for severance if you wanted to. But I would speak with a lawyer from our Toronto office. So Lenny says, please provide that list. Yeah, I saw it. I'm sure you could Google it. I'm sorry to give you that answer. I don't have the list in front of me, but I remember Googling it and I found it very easily. Jamie says or asks, I'm on a temporary layoff. My employer is asking to give my vaccine status. I haven't been called back to work. Do I need to provide this right now? And what if I don't have it? Well, Jamie, I guess the reality is if you say that you don't want to provide it, they're going to assume you're unvaccinated, right? Whether you have to provide it or not really depends on your workplace. And for people who've seen me on here before, I give that answer a lot, and I apologize for it, but it really does, right? If you're in an office environment and you don't work close to anybody, I don't, and everyone's spread out in their own space. I don't see why the employer needs your vaccination status, right? I don't, because that's at the end of the day, that's private medical information. If you're in a workplace where there's been a lot of COVID cases, you're working side by side, then it's more reasonable and probably you're obligated to provide your vaccination status. At the end of the day, it does depend on the workplace, Jamie. So I'm sorry if I can't give you a black and white answer. I think that talk to a lawyer about your specific situation if you really don't want to give it. I think that if you don't give it, they're just going to assume you're unvaccinated anyways. We've got a question from Edmund. Edmund's wife, 2 jobs. Has one as a teacher, one as a daycare provider. The daycare is closed because it's located in the school. Loss of income from that source. Can she apply for the benefit related to that income? Edmund, I'm not sure what benefit you're talking about. If you're talking about EI, I'm not sure that your wife could apply because she still has the job as a teacher. I know that there's a maximum amount you can earn before you're disqualified from EI. So if you're talking about EI, I'm not sure that your wife can apply, unfortunately. It obviously depends on how much she's earning right now. But I know she could be disqualified based on her income from the other job, her job as a teacher. If there's another benefit you're thinking of, Edmund, let me know. But if you're referring to EI, it might be an issue. So Jamie's asking, your husband's on or coming off short-term disability. They're heading back to work soon. Does not disclose the status. Doesn't know if you'll be back to work. Yeah, Jamie. So you've got to be careful with the severances. If you can't, your husband can't be the one that initiates that conversation, right? Because that could be construed. I mean, it's dangerous to do that because that could be construed as a resignation. I think your husband needs if they're asking for the status to be disclosed, first and foremost, you have to talk to a lawyer about whether he's obligated to provide that status given his workplace, right? And at the end of the day, I don't know if that's a battle worth fighting, because even if you say, no, I'm not going to disclose it, they're going to assume he's unvaccinated. And if they don't let him go back to work because he's unvaccinated, again, I think that the big factor is, has the government told your husband's company that they have to have a mandatory vaccination policy to work, right? If your husband's telling the company, I'm ready and willing to come back to work, and the company says you can't because you're not vaccinated, I would go talk to a lawyer about whether he's able to claim severance in that situation, because that's a different scenario. So yeah, if that's the case, if your husband's ready to go back, and his company's just saying, whoa, you're not vaccinated, you can't come back, he could be able to claim for severance, depending on the workplace. So Satish says, on temp layoff since March 2020, you're over 65, you got 20 years in the company. Can I sue employer for loss of income? Have that one called back? I'm non-unionized. Yeah, Satish, I think you've got to talk to a lawyer right away. You, I'm so just based on your very short blurb there, I'm confident that you probably have a constructive dismissal case. Okay, you've been off for almost 2 years now. I'm not sure any. I could be wrong, but in BC at least, they can't keep you on a temporary layoff that long. I don't know if any other provinces in Canada actually lets an employee, lets an employer keep an employee on a temporary layoff for that long. Um, and because you're relatively older, Satish, and you've been with the company, I think you're saying 20 plus years, your severance package could be quite substantial, right? It could be almost 2 years pay. So if you don't want to be on temporary layoff anymore, Satish, call me or call another lawyer at our firm, depending on what province you're at. I think my number should be on the screen at some point, or you can just search us on the internet. But yeah, Satish, I'm fairly confident that you are able to sue if you want, but before you take any steps, talk to a lawyer, and they can give you the best advice as to what to do. And yeah, see, so I think my help at employmentlawyers.ca, if you want to email that person or call our number, we'll be able to set you up with someone, depending on what province you're in. Philip asks, non-union worker in Ontario, your unpaid leave of absence due to vaccination mandates. Before this policy, there was another that I was allowing testing weekly, but they removed that. Yeah, Philip, I think I'm in BC. I alluded to this earlier, but in Ontario, there's not a lot of industries. Actually, I don't want to say that. I don't think there's a lot of industries in Ontario where they've mandated vaccinations. If you're non-union, so speak to a lawyer from a Toronto office. If you're on an unpaid leave, as I said before, that's not allowed generally unless you've consented to it. But if what you're looking for is severance, there's a way to get there in your current situation if that's what you want, right? If you want to sever the employment relationship and get some severance pay. So talk to a lawyer in our Toronto office about that. Body says you've been laid off since since March 14, 2020 because of COVID-19. Haven't heard back from your employer. Next step to get severance pay or termination pay. Yeah, Body, that's a good question. Similar to the previous situation, I think it was Satish. In BC, I know 100% certainty as of this point. An employer can't keep you on a temporary layoff for that long. If you want severance, call us or call an employment lawyer. They'll tell you what to do to get your severance, right? You claim what's called a constructive dismissal, and if necessary, you start a lawsuit to get the severance pay. In other provinces, I'm fairly confident that there's no other province in Canada that permits an employer to keep an employee on temporary layoff for that long. There's very exceptional circumstances, maybe, but in your case, Body Sculpt, I would speak to a lawyer in your province. And get those next steps. In BC, what I would do is probably just send a letter or start a lawsuit, and just say, hey, you've kept my client on a temporary layoff too long. This is essentially a termination of his employment. Therefore, he's entitled to severance pay. Something along those lines. Philip says, what are the chances I get some compensation if I get a letter from a lawyer to give to my work? I don't know. It depends on the company. It depends on your specific situation. I think it's one of those things where a letter from the lawyer, it could get you the severance, or you might need to start a lawsuit. So it's hard for me to say the chances without knowing more about, I guess, your company and what your specific situation involves. Lanny, college exemption list. I think I have it saved somewhere, but I don't have it in front of me. If you just, it should be out there. It's a form. You just Google it, and you should be able to find it. Belinda says, my employer has cut our commission considerably as a result of the pandemic. They said our contracts don't stipulate what commission percentage should be, and they're within their rights. Is this true? Yeah, Belinda, that's something I would go and get a lawyer to review your contract. In general, I'll say that an employer can't unilaterally just lower your earnings, right? Commission is tricky because if sales are bad, that's a different story, right? If they've actually reduced the percentages, right? Like if you got 20% of sales before and they reduced it to 10% of sales, that could likely be a basis for you to claim for severance, or that could be a basis you sue your employer for, right? And it's not clear to me from your from what you've said what they've actually done. If it's just because sales are down, then that's probably not something you have a legal basis to claim against your employer. If it's because they've actually changed the structure so that it's less favorable for you, that could be something that you could claim against them for. Again, your contract could allow the employer to do that. So that's why I'm saying if you have a written contract, go talk to a lawyer about it if it's a substantial difference. So guys, I'll take one or two more, and then I've got to take off here. William asked, why have there not been court challenges? William, I think there have been against an employer, right? There definitely have. I'm aware of lawsuits in court right now that have been filed, and probably more than in all over Canada. So there are court challenges against employer vaccination mandates. The Dreamer, we have, can the employer have your overtime start after 88 hours instead of 44? So Dreamy, it sounds like you're in Ontario, and I'm not familiar with the Ontario ESA, the Employment Standards Act. So I'll refrain. I'll only say that it's whatever the requirements are under the Employment Standards Act in Ontario, the employer cannot contract out of them. So in your situation, talk to an Ontario lawyer about that. So Jim says constitutional lawyer is suing the government Supreme Court. Yeah, I mean I have heard about that. That's more against the government, not against an employer. I think that's yeah. Let's see if I can take one more question here. Okay, guys, I think I got through most of the questions. I am back in 2 weeks, Thursday, January 20th at the same time. My colleague Dan will be on as well in the next week. So he's also from BC. And as I said earlier, my colleagues from Toronto. So all the Ontario viewers out there, there will be an Ontario lawyer on here in the next week or so. So look out for that. I'm sorry if I couldn't answer the Ontario questions, but again, thanks everyone for joining. I'll be back in 2 weeks, and Happy New Year's to you all.